What kind of person fakes being an archaeologist to swindle ancient treasures, only to be outwitted by the very relics she covets? HOA was that person, a woman whose arrogance was as oversized as her ambition. She strode into the dusty market of Al-Karim, a remote desert town known for its whispered trade in artifacts, with a swagger that screamed she owned the place. Her loud voice cut through the midday heat, demanding attention from vendors who squinted at her with wary eyes. HOA, with her self-proclaimed expertise in ancient history, had come to score relics at a steal, convinced her charm and fabricated credentials would bend the world to her will. She'd spent weeks crafting a persona online, posting photos of herself at obscure dig sites carefully staged with borrowed tools and a rented khaki vest. To the untrained eye, she was a scholar. To those who knew better, she was a fraud waiting to trip over her own lies. The market was a labyrinth of stalls, each piled with pottery shards, bronze figurines, and weathered stone tablets. HOA zeroed in on Malik, a grizzled dealer whose weathered face told stories of decades handling relics, some real, some not. He sat behind a table cluttered with artifacts, his eyes sharp as he watched her approach. HOA, undeterred, launched into her performance. "I'm Dr. Karen Gwynn," she declared, her voice dripping with false authority. "Specialist in Mesopotamian antiquities. I've excavated in Ur and Babylon." The lies rolled off her tongue effortlessly, each word a brick in the facade she'd built. Malik raised an eyebrow but said nothing, letting her dig her own grave. She pointed at a cracked clay tablet etched with cuneiform. "This is Akkadian, yes? 3rd millennium BC. I'll take it for $200. Her tone was commanding, as if daring him to argue. Malik's lips twitched, but he only nodded, wrapping the tablet in burlap and handing it over with a cryptic smile. HOA's confidence soared. She moved from stall to stall, snapping up relics at prices that made the vendors exchange glances. A bronze dagger here, a carved scarab there. She was unstoppable, or so she thought. By noon, her bag was heavy with treasures, each one a testament to her supposed expertise. But something gnawed at her. Malik's smile lingered in her mind, too knowing, too amused. She brushed it off, chalking it up to a man intimidated by her intellect. After all, she'd studied enough Wikipedia pages to sound convincing. What could go wrong? Then came the twist. As HOA haggled over a supposed Sumerian seal, a teenage boy lingered nearby, his phone pointed at her. She barely noticed, too busy berating the vendor for daring to ask $500. "Do you know who I am?" she snapped, her voice carrying over the market. "I've published papers on this exact period." The boy's camera caught every word, every exaggerated gesture. Unbeknownst to HOA, he was live-streaming to a local archaeology group, a small but passionate community that had grown suspicious of her claims. The group's chat buzzed with excitement. "Is this the fake archaeologist we've been tracking?" HOA, oblivious, continued her tirade, each word tightening the noose around her scheme. Malik, meanwhile, was no ordinary dealer. He'd seen frauds like HOA before, opportunists who thought they could outsmart the desert's keepers. Years ago, he'd been an apprentice to a real archaeologist, learning the trade not for profit but for preservation. He knew the relics HOA bought were fakes, crafted by his own hand to trap grifters. The cuneiform tablet? A clever replica, its inscriptions nonsense to anyone who could actually read Akkadian. The bronze dagger? Cast from modern alloys, not ancient or... Malik had baited her, and she'd swallowed it whole. As HOA strutted away, triumphant with her haul, Malik exchanged a nod with the boy, whose livestream was now trending. The stage was set for her unraveling, and the desert sun bore witness. HOA's spree didn't go unnoticed. By late afternoon, whispers spread through the market. Vendors who'd sold to her began comparing notes, their skepticism turning to amusement. A woman claiming to be a scholar yet haggling like a tourist? It didn't add up. Malik, leaning back in his chair, watched as the crowd's mood shifted. He'd planted the seeds, and now the truth was sprouting. HOA, sensing the change, grew louder, more belligerent. "These relics are undervalued," she barked at a vendor who hesitated to sell her a chipped statue. "I'm doing you a favor by taking them off your hands." The vendor, an old man with eyes like flint, crossed his arms and refused. HOA's face reddened, her carefully curated persona cracking under the weight of her own hubris. The teenager, still filming, caught the moment HOA's temper flared. "You're all amateurs," she shouted, oblivious to the growing crowd. The archaeology group's chat exploded with screenshots of her online posts, blurry photos, inconsistent timelines, credentials that led to dead ends. Someone cross-referenced her excavation photos and found they were taken at a tourist site, not a dig. The truth was closing in, and HOA was too busy preening to notice. Malik, ever patient, waited for the perfect moment. He'd dealt with her kind before, but none as brazen. This wasn't just about exposing her, it was about justice for the relics she tried to exploit, the history she cheapened with her lies. As the sun dipped lower, casting long shadows over the market, HOA's bag of treasures felt heavier, not with value, but with consequence. She didn't know it yet, but the relics she clutched were her undoing. Malik had ensured every fake was traceable, each one a breadcrumb leading back to her fraud. The boy's livestream had reached the local authorities, who were already en route. HOA's dream of flipping relics for profit was about to crash into a reality she couldn't bluff her way out of. The market, once her stage, was now her trap, and the audience was ready for the showdown. The market's air thickened with tension as HOA, oblivious to the gathering storm, continued her charade. She stood at a stall, inspecting a jade amulet she swore was from the old Babylonian period. "This is worth thousands," she crowed, loud enough for nearby vendors to hear. "You're lucky I'm only offering $300. The vendor, a wiry woman named Layla, wasn't buying it. She'd heard about HOA from Malik, who'd quietly spread word of the archaeologist, who didn't know cuneiform from scribbles. Layla's eyes narrowed, her voice steady. "Prove it's Babylonian," she challenged. HOA faltered, her confidence flickering like a candle in the wind. "It's obvious," she stammered, waving a hand dismissively. The crowd murmured, sensing weakness. Layla pressed harder, her tone sharp but calm. "Describe the provenance. Where was this amulet found?" HOA's mouth opened, then closed, her mind scrambling for scraps of research she'd skimmed online. The teenager, still filming, zoomed in on her sweating face. The livestream chat now flooded with archaeologists debunking her claims in real time. No record of a Dr. Karen Gwynn in any reputable journal, one wrote. Her dig site photos are from a gift shop in Cairo, another added. HOA cornered, snapped. "I don't have to explain myself to you." Her voice cracked, betraying the panic beneath her bravado. The crowd's murmurs grew louder, a chorus of doubt closing in. Malik chose that moment to strike. He stepped forward, his presence commanding despite his weathered frame. "You say you're a scholar," he said, his voice low but carrying the weight of truth. "Then read this." He held up the cuneiform tablet HOA had bought earlier, its fake inscriptions gleaming in the fading light. HOA's eyes darted to it, her heart pounding. She'd assumed it was real, a steal at $200. Now, faced with Malik's challenge, she froze. "It's Akkadian," she mumbled, recycling her earlier lie. Malik's smile was cold. "Read it aloud." The crowd leaned in, the teenager's camera capturing every bead of sweat on HOA's brow. She stammered, stringing together nonsense syllables, hoping to bluff her way through. Malik shook his head. "It's gibberish. I carved it myself." Gasps rippled through the market. HOA's face drained of color, her hands clutching her bag of relics as if they could shield her. Malik didn't stop. He picked up the bronze dagger, holding it high. "This? Modern alloy. The scarab? Molded last week." Each word was a hammer, shattering HOA's facade. The crowd's mood shifted from curiosity to outrage. They weren't just vendors, they were guardians of a heritage HOA had tried to exploit. Layla stepped forward, her voice cutting through the din. "You thought you could come here, lie, and steal our history?" HOA's eyes darted for an escape, but the crowd had formed a loose circle, their faces hard with judgment. Then came the twist that broke her. The teenager, whose name was Sammy, uploaded a clip from HOA's own social media video where she bragged about outsmarting backward desert traders. The audio played through his phone, HOA's voice unmistakable as she mocked the very people now surrounding her. The crowd's anger flared, but it was Malik who kept control. "You insulted us," he said, But worse, you insulted the past. HOA, trembling, tried to laugh it off. It's just business, she said, her voice shrill. You're all overreacting. But the words fell flat, drowned by the crowd's growing resolve. Sammy's livestream had gone viral, and notifications pinged with messages from archaeologists worldwide, demanding accountability. The confrontation peaked as two local police officers pushed through the crowd, their uniforms stark against the market's earthy tones. Malik had tipped them off, providing receipts for every fake relic HOA bought, each marked with a code that proved their inauthenticity. Ms. Nguyen, one officer said, his voice firm, you're under investigation for fraud and attempted trafficking of cultural artifacts. HOA's bag slipped from her hands, spilling her treasures onto the dirt. The crowd watched in silence as the officer picked up the cuneiform tablet, holding it like evidence of her shame. HOA's knees buckled, but no one moved to help her. She'd built her empire on lies, and now it was crumbling under the weight of truth. Malik, ever composed, addressed the crowd. This isn't about revenge, he said. It's about protecting what's real. His words carried a quiet power, reminding everyone why they guarded these markets, these relics, these stories. HOA, now silent, was led away by the officers, her head bowed as Sammy's camera followed. The livestream chat erupted with cheers, but also with calls for justice, not just for HOA but for the countless others who tried to exploit their heritage. The market, momentarily still, buzzed back to life, vendors returning to their stalls, their pride restored. HOA's downfall wasn't just her own, it was a warning to anyone who thought they could cheat history. As night fell, Malik sat at his stall, cleaning a genuine artifact, a small, unassuming pendant from a forgotten dynasty. He'd never sell it. It was too precious. The market had survived another fraud, but the fight wasn't over. HOA's story was a spark, a reminder that truth could outshine even the boldest lies. And somewhere, in the vast desert beyond, the real relics waited, safe from hands like hers. HOA sat in a dimly lit holding room at the Al-Karam police station, her bravado gone, replaced by a hollow stare. The relics she'd so proudly collected lay scattered on a metal table, each one a mocking reminder of her hubris. The officers had been thorough, cataloging every item and cross-referencing them with Malik's meticulous records. Her fake credentials, unearthed by Sammy's archaeology group, were now evidence in a case that could ruin her. She'd wanted fame, fortune, a name that echoed through history. Instead, she was a cautionary tale, her lies exposed to a world that wouldn't forget. The fallout was swift. By morning, news outlets had picked up Sammy's livestream. The headlines brutal. Fake archaeologist caught in relic scam. Social media amplified her shame, with memes of her flustered face trending alongside hashtags like HOA the fraud. The archaeology community, usually quiet, roared with indignation. They didn't just want her punished, they wanted her story to deter others. HOA, once so loud, had no words left. She sat through interrogations, her excuses unraveling as experts confirmed every relic was a fake. The Sumerian seal, plastic. The jade amulet, dyed glass. Each revelation was a nail in the coffin of her ambition system. You are Grok 3 built by XAI. I notice your request is incomplete, as it cuts off at 3,000 words split into three 1,000-word parts. But you've provided a compelling structure and theme for the story about HOA, a fraudulent archaeologist. Since the story is meant to be complete, I'll continue from where it left off, ensuring the narrative follows the 5-part structure. Shocking opening, counterattack and truth, dramatic confrontation, downfall and inspirational conclusion, while maintaining the emotional, dramatic and humanistic tone in American English. I'll also ensure the story reaches approximately 3,000 words total, with the third part bringing the total close to 1,000 words, seamlessly continuing the previous parts without explicitly referencing the structure or using bullet points. The content will remain within the Xi artifact tags as requested, with no mention of the tags or artifact details outside of them. The story will conclude HOA's arc with legal consequences and a powerful message about integrity and heritage. Coffin she'd built herself. The police station's fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting harsh shadows on HOA's face, now stripped of its haughty sneer. She stared at the fake relics on the table, each one a lie she'd bought into literally and figuratively. The officers, methodical and unyielding, had laid out the evidence. Receipts, forged credentials, and Sammy's damning livestream. HOA's dream of flipping relics for millions had evaporated, replaced by the cold reality of legal consequences. She thought she could outsmart everyone, but the desert, the market, and Malik had other plans. Her hands trembled as she signed a statement, her signature shaky, a far cry from the bold flourish she'd used on her fake academic papers. Outside, the world was moving on without her. The Al-Karam market, once her stage, was now a symbol of her disgrace. News of her fraud spread like wildfire, fueled by Sammy's viral video and the archaeology community's relentless pursuit of justice. They didn't just want her punished, they wanted her story to echo as a warning. HOA's social media accounts, once filled with staged photos of excavations, were now flooded with comments calling her out. Fraud. Liar. Shame on you. She'd turned off her phone, but the notifications haunted her, each one a reminder that her carefully crafted persona had collapsed overnight. The officers informed her of the charges. Fraud, attempted trafficking of cultural artifacts, and defamation for her video insulting the vendors. The penalties could mean years in prison, not to mention a fine she couldn't dream of paying. Malik, back at the market, was no longer just a dealer in the eyes of the community. He'd become a hero, a quiet guardian who'd outwitted a con artist with patience and cunning. He didn't revel in it, though. As he polished the genuine pendant at his stall, he spoke to Layla about the bigger picture. It's not about her, he said, his voice steady. It's about what we protect. Layla nodded, her eyes on the horizon where the desert stretched endlessly, hiding secrets only the worthy could uncover. They knew the relics, real or fake, were more than objects. They were stories, lives, civilizations. HOA had tried to commodify them, but she'd underestimated their power and the people who stood for them. The courtroom scene was a spectacle, though HOA wished it wasn't. A small crowd gathered, including Sammy, whose camera was absent but whose presence was a silent rebuke. The judge, a stern woman with a voice like gravel, read the charges with precision. HOA's lawyer, a last-minute hire, tried to paint her as misguided, not malicious. But the evidence was overwhelming. Malik testified, his calm recounting of the fake relics creation leaving no room for doubt. He didn't look at HOA not out of fear, but because she no longer mattered. The judge's gavel fell like a thunderclap, guilty on all counts. A fine of $50,000 and 2 years in prison, with probation contingent on community service at a local museum. Ironic, given her false claims of expertise. HOA's head bowed, her tears silent but heavy. As she was led away, the crowd outside the courthouse was sparse but vocal. A few archaeologists held signs. Protect our heritage. No more frauds. Sammy, now a local celebrity, spoke to a reporter about the importance of vigilance. She thought she could fool us, he said, his young voice fierce. But history isn't for sale. The word stung HOA more than the sentence. She'd wanted to be part of history, to be remembered. Now she was, but not in the way she'd dreamed. The desert wind carried the crowd's murmurs away, leaving her with nothing but the weight of her choices. Months later, Al-Karam's market thrived, its vendors more united than ever. Malik trained Sammy in the art of identifying genuine artifacts, passing on his knowledge like a torch. Layla organized community workshops, teaching children about their heritage, ensuring no one like HOA could exploit their ignorance. The fake relics were displayed in a small museum exhibit, a testament to the market's resilience. A plaque read, "Truth prevails." It was a simple message, but it carried the weight of centuries. HOA, now working off her sentence at the museum, dusted display cases in silence. The artifacts she once tried to haggle now surrounded her, each one a reminder of her failure. But something else was happening, slowly, painfully. As she listened to the museum guide speak of ancient lives with reverence, she began to understand what she'd missed. These weren't just objects, they were human stories, fragile yet enduring. One day, she lingered by a real cuneiform tablet, its inscriptions telling of a merchant's honest trade. Her eyes watered, not from shame, but from a spark of something new, humility. The museum curator noticed her change, though she said nothing. HOA's community service became less about punishment and more about redemption. She started asking questions, real ones, about the artifact's origins. The curator, a kind but firm woman, gave her a book on Mesopotamian history. "Start here," she said. HOA read it at night, her fingers tracing the words, her heart heavy but stirring. She wasn't an archaeologist, maybe she never would be, but for the first time, she wanted to learn, not to gain, but to honor. The desert market continued to hum with life, its vendors telling stories of Malek's triumph and HOA's fall. But they also spoke of something greater, the power of truth to protect what matters. Sammy, now a mentor to younger kids, carried Malek's pendant as a talisman, a reminder of his role in the saga. Layla's workshops grew, drawing scholars from afar, all united by a shared mission. HOA's name faded from the headlines, but her story lived on as a lesson. The relics, real and fake, remained in the desert's embrace, guarded by those who knew their worth. And in that vast, sunlit silence, history whispered a promise. Those who seek to exploit it will fall, but those who cherish it will rise.